Give us a sense of how you think the sanitation exercise had gone so far.
First of all, let me correct you. Lamido moved in on the 14th of August, which is about 10 months ago. He actually assumed office about this time last year. And I think there's been too much emphasis on bank regulation and financial system stability as against what the true call and objective of central banking is about monetary policy, inflation, money supply, and exchange rate management. That is the primary responsibility of the central bank. The financial system stability and the use of the banking system as transmission mechanism for policy to the markets and feedback is another issue altogether. The fact that there was identified a tumor in the system and there was need to actually amputate, or how will I say, to remove the malignant tumor, which is what he did, is another issue altogether. The jury is out. Like I said, the diagnosis there was nothing else you had to do. The diagnosis was there was mismanagement, banks were bloated, there was overtrading, there was malpractice, so you had to do something. The sequence of how it was implemented, the therapy in terms of the dose of the drug that was used, and the outcome today raises certain questions as to whether things could have been rearranged, things could have been done in a more orderly manner, so that the outcome could have been not as devastating as it is. But at the end of the day, what we have is that we have maybe a sanitized system, right? It's how would I put it? It's anemic. It's not exactly efficient, but at least it's sanitized. The culture of impunity has been exercised totally and completely. I think there's a trauma, and people are coming back slowly to normal business and banking practice. But in the end, what was the alternative? So in that sense, I will leave it at that point. But definitely, I would have suggested that the AMC law should have been in place. The AMC should have been, so that the bad assets could have been brought up almost immediately. Secondly, I would have said that even though you identify the bad assets, that the banks should have been allowed a longer period to amortize this so that it doesn't wreck them and destroy shareholder value. I think that the broad objective of banking penetration, bank intermediation, credit growth, and all of that was kind of stalled because of the emphasis on sanitization. So there was too much emphasis on sanitization rather than the normal banking business and the proper regulation of the system.
I was about to ask that it happens almost always in our environment, that oftentimes we come in to do cleansing and consolidation, and central bank have hardly had any time to sit down to really do the business for which it was set up.
Yes, the truth is that that's why a manager should multitask. You prioritize.
You have one task killing you, taking 99% of your time.
Yeah, but those are the distractions that you don't require. Look.
So how do we stop these distractions? That's what the key point is.
In the U.S., there's banking regulation taking place. There's sovereign debt crisis being managed. There's monetary policy being articulated at the same time and implemented. All of these things, there's no time, because you see, we are looking for a general dynamic equilibrium. There's no time. You can't put all other things on hold and deal with one thing. And as long as you deprioritize or you blur your vision by chasing too many things at the same time, you end up doing not any of them efficiently.
We've got to rebalance this. It's a situation which the regulators, the supervisors spend most of the time chasing the bad guys, as it were, among the children, as it were, rather than concentrating on making provisions for the household. In other words, just keeping the children quiet. You had less time looking for the daily bread, as it were, because you have a lot of unruly children, as it were, in a household. So, how do you think the central bank and its ancillary sister organizations, as it were, should handle this? That look, for once and for all, let's put measures in place to keep these operators who create larger than life problem for us all the time quiet, so that we can concentrate on developing the market itself and delivering the necessary deliverables to the overall economy, rather than all the time we keep trying to keep them quiet, keep them well behaved, while at the same time they are not delivering to the economy, as it were.
No, I think this month alone, 5 banks have been closed in the United States The thing is that it's work in progress all the time. There's no time that banks and operators are not going to misbehave. So that's why you have the Banking Supervision Department, you have the non-bank financial institution area, you have the Security and Exchange Commission, you have all sorts of regulatory bodies who are constantly monitoring activities, discovering early warning signals, taking steps, and there are a series of options open to deal with infractions. And I come back to what the Security and Exchange Commission is trying to do, to actually identify people within the broker-dealer community who were used as vehicles to carry out all of these manipulations in the market. There was regulatory connivance in some cases, there was manipulation, there were teaming and leading, there was a complete breakdown, and there was all, woeful inadequacy in the governance structure, both within the public and the private space. All of these things have to be structurally changed and improved. I think that is part of the process. The other part of the process is that you are looking at money supply, inflation, and all this to create an efficient market. Once there's an efficient market and prices are actually discovered on an efficient basis, you find that the ability of operators to take advantage of regulatory arbitrage, take advantage of information asymmetry, to create unnecessary superfluous profits will be minimized. And when they now know that they have to do business the proper way and the old-fashioned way to earn money, then they will resort to what they have to do, which is use their knowledge, use their skills, use the market information, use service to drive the profits they make.
Well, when we talk about that regulatory arbitrage, what Femi Awoyemi of ProShare calls incestuous relationship, yes. Is it a Nigerian factor, as it were, or something just out there that as soon as anyone comes in as a regulator and the head of the team, it doesn't take too long before he or she gets bogged down by, or gets hemmed in by the forces, as it were?
Well, I think it's not a Nigerian factor. People take advantage. You see, when you have a system which is highly government dominant, in terms of, like, there's fiscal dominance in this country, there's over-regulation in my judgment in certain respects and all of that, then people hang around the decision makers to take advantage of things. And I'll give you an example. On November 28th last, in 2008, right, 2008, it was almost clear within certain elements of the areas of the central bank that there was going to be an adjustment of the exchange rate. Now, the exchange rate was adjusted downwards by about almost 15% by the 1st of December or 2nd of December. The system we had at that time where the banks bought for themselves and on behalf of customers. Now, some banks took positions to the extent of almost $1 billion. And so if you took a position knowing very well that the exchange rate was going to depreciate, and you made 15% of $1 billion, some people made about $150, $200 million overnight because they had information, inside information. That's what we call regulatory arbitrage. That's unfair. That's unwholesome practice. That was the case.
Someone let the dog out.
Yeah, no, but I mean, not for nothing. People once have been compensated for that kind of transaction.
So when we talk about this, is corruption, as it were. There's
no, I don't think so. I mean, it is corruption, yes, but it is, what do you call it, regulatory arbitrage and taking advantage, abuse of office, if you call it in another way.
Let's move on very quickly before we finish this first part of the discussion.